Welcome back to America's Retirement Headquarters, home of the Retirement Guys Formula and America's Medicare Associates with Nolan Baker, Scott Kirshner, and Chaz Price. 419-794-3030 is the phone number. The website, arhq.com. Guys, there was an article in the Wall Street Journal that said many investors age 55 and up are putting most of their nest egg into the stock market. Kind of makes sense after all. That's how they made the majority of it. And, the saying goes, dance with the one that brought you. But that could backfire if there was a major tumble, especially for older retirees. Is this something that you guys see? What can provide guaranteed income, without the risk of a stock exposure later in life?
Well, I guess, when you say the word guaranteed, you always have to start with making sure you explain what guaranteed means. And, when we're talking guaranteed, usually here we're talking about things that are, say, FDIC insured. Those are some bank guarantees that you get through the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. Or you could have like an insurance guarantee, which, when you look at insurance guarantees, they're based upon the claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. So, whether it's a radio show or a segment on our YouTube or you're listening to something or reading something on the internet, again, when something is guaranteed, always look into who is backing that guarantee and what is the claims paying ability and the backing that you have there. But if we back up a minute there and we talk about that article in the Wall Street Journal and how people that are age 55 and up are putting most of their money and most of their nest egg in the retirement, I was really shocked at what some of the results are. Nearly half of Vanguard 401k investors actively managing their money and over the age 55 held 70% of their portfolio in stocks. Now, in comparison, in 2011, only 38% did so. At Fidelity Investments, nearly 4 in 10 investors aged 65 to 69 hold about 2/3 or more of their portfolio in stocks. In taxable brokerage accounts at Vanguard, 1/5 of investors 85 or older have nearly all of their money in stocks. That's up from 16% in 2012. The same is true for almost a quarter of those aged 75 to 80. So pretty interesting when you look at what percentage of money that they have. And it reminds me of a client that just had recently came in. They're new to working with our family. And, when I got together with them, we went through our discovery process. I'm finding out about their goals. Retirement's just a couple of years away, what they want to do. They live a pretty modest lifestyle. They want to go watch their sons and or grandsons' hockey games and maybe, take some travel and enjoy life. But, they've done a great job, paid down debts and paid off debts, had a decent pension and some Social Security to boot. And then they had this retirement nest egg that they'd saved up, a pretty decent nest egg. And when I looked at it and I was reviewing the statements, it had the risk profile on the statements. And the risk profile, it said aggressive growth. And I was kind of, taken back a little bit by that because, here they are, they're getting ready to retire in a couple of years. And we know shorter term, it's uncertain what the stock market does. And God forbid if the stock market had a major hiccup right before or right after retirement time, that sequence of returns risk could really blow things up. In addition to that, the way that they describe themselves to me is I would refer to them as more of a conservative investor,
Sure.
They're things like we've worked hard, saved hard, we want to protect what we've worked a lifetime to save and accumulate. And it's been my experience of nearly 30 plus years when somebody is invested in an aggressive growth strategy and not if, but when the market has a major downturn, that type of investor is probably more emotionally at risk of making a change to the strategy to try to stop the losses, stop the bleeding when the investments have already gone down, actually locking in those losses. It's a painful lesson that, too many investors experience. And I said, here it is, the middle of 2023 with the economy doing well, with the markets in a pretty good shape. Maybe it's time to line up the portfolio with really who you are. More importantly than that, Chaz, you put together this independent income system calculator. So you took, the years of experience that we have, and we were able to kind of put in their numbers, their pension, their Social Security, their income goals and objectives. And then it showed me what is the total amount of money they needed to fund those goals. in our process that's called the independent income system. And it was really just a little less than what they had already saved and accumulated.
Yeah.
They made it. They
Yeah.
had enough money. They had made it, but nobody had ever clarified to them what that number was, what the number was that they needed. So, if you're listening and you don't know what your number is, I encourage you to get a hold of our office, ask Chaz to run that number or our office to run the number for you in the independent income system calculator, and we can tell you exactly what your number should be. But, when I showed him that, the follow-up question I asked him is, if you're $500,000, if you leave it aggressive growth and the money doubles, what are you going to do different? And when we talked about this, you said, hey, maybe they have a little bit more peace of mind. I would agree.
Sure.
I probably would have a little bit more peace of mind too if the money doubled over time. It probably would allow them to have a little bit better peace of mind by having double the amount of money that they needed. It also maybe would take an extra Disney vacation,
Sure.
maybe take those grandkids, do something fun. But then I asked them the follow-up question, and what would retirement look like if half of your money went away?
It's a big difference.
It's a big,
Huge.
big difference.
The
Yeah,
stress level would go through the roof for them.
through the roof. I mean, it's like somebody has to go back to work. We can't retire when we want to. You might as well cancel those trips and vacations that we wanted to do. And so by showing them a process allowed them to be able to put an approach in place to allow them to be a little bit more protected than where they were and be able to show that they were on track. And, if we think about it, if you're that type of an investor and you're listening and you think of what happened in that short time frame with COVID, how something unexpectedly shook the economy and shook the markets and having major declines right away. Luckily, that time the government bailed us out. They bailed everybody out, right? And so the market bounced back. Will this administration that we have right now, will they bail out Wall Street if Wall Street crashes? I don't think so. Well, who knows? But, I don't think that necessarily that will happen. So if you didn't have a bailout, can you afford to lose 30, 40, 50%? Or think about what happened even last year with the market down pretty significantly. Was there a change made by your advisor? Was there something that was done to try to limit those losses? And if you put your seatbelt on and you buckled down, you rode it back, and now that the market's up substantially, now may be a great time to get together and talk about, while interest rates are so high, using some of these other protected strategies, whether it's a FDIC insured bank CD that are paying, in the 5% ranges, or whether you use an annuity product that offers some different types of protection, whether it's income protection or whether it's a downside risk protection and risk against loss. It is really kind of a good time, and there are different ways that you can have, more guaranteed income in retirement.
Yeah, I think it comes down to the philosophy that I have and the sensibility as an investment advisor is when we're talking about risk, I'm not asking the question, how much risk are you willing to take? And that's what I've seen in the past. A lot of advisors will, base your investment allocation on a 10-question questionnaire and your age. Our clients, our listeners deserve a better, more sophisticated, more comprehensive process than that. And it comes down to understanding what your future needs are and understanding how much risk do I need to take. And absent a process or some sort of, financial planning, endeavor that you've went through, it's going to be almost impossible to determine what the answer to that question is. And so that's the value that I think that we bring with the independent income system and the retirement calculator that we developed. Here's just a couple of takeaways. If our listeners are concerned, if, like you said, Nolan, that 2022 market downturn really shocked you, or if you rewind just a few years later, if the COVID crisis, the 30 for 30, down 30% in 30 days really shook you, you may want to come in for a review of your 401k or other retirement assets if you feel as though your retirement balance fluctuates a lot. If you're got $100,000 to save, for instance, and it's in between 1 month or the other, it's going between 110 and 90, it's fluctuating 10% in a month, you're probably an aggressive investor. Number two, if you worry a lot about your 401k, if it's keeping you up at night, if you feel as though you're invested too aggressively, maybe you are. Maybe that's something that you definitely want to consider having a conversation about. If you need the money sooner than later, that's another thing to consider. 401k, if you don't have any cash or any alternative investments that can weather the storm, that can offset the stock market downturns that we see traditionally every 5 or 6 years. Recently, it seems like it's been more frequent than that. You definitely need to have your portfolio reviewed. So it's kind of like the Dave Letterman's 3 signs you are an aggressive investor. I mean, if that resonates with you, you want to consider your future needs, consider your ability to save, consider your risk tolerance, and then determine how aggressive your portfolio should be. But it's definitely something, I think, given the market's reactions to the Fed tightening and all the other disaster du jours we've had recently, that it's something for you to revisit.
If the past couple of years have served as a jarring wake-up call for you, and you know you need to do something, but you don't know exactly what it is that you need to do when it comes to dialing back your risk, just by joining us here on the show, you're showing that you're taking the right step. But to go one step further and actually put a plan in place, all you have to do is pick up the phone and give a call, 419-794-3030. Schedule a time to speak with the team at America's Retirement Headquarters. Start correcting that, 419-794-3030, or visit the website, arhq.com.